age-old wisdom of our culture, a wisdom contained in the book of the Genesis in the Bible. In the beginning was the Spirit, and it was from this Spirit that the material abundance of creation issued forth. But progress is not foreordained. The key is freedom. Freedom of thought, freedom of information, freedom of communication. Freedom is the right to question and change the established way of doing things. It is the continuing revolution of the marketplace. It is the right to put forth an idea scoffed at by the experts and watch it catch fire among the people. God bless you.
We are the masters of our fate. That the task which has been set us is not above our strength. That its pangs and toils are not beyond our endurance. As long as we have faith in our cause and an unconquerable willpower, salvation will not be denied us.
Liberty is not built on the doctrine that a few nobles have a right to inherit the earth. No! No! By the unalterable, indefeasible laws of God and nature, as well entitled to the benefit of the air to breathe, light to see, food to eat, and clothes to wear as the nobles or the king. That is liberty. And liberty will reign in America.
You're listening to Political Vindication Radio. My name is Shane. I'm here with Frank. We're talking politics, history, culture. That's what we do every Tuesday from 5 to 7 Broken Coast time. And you've got a treat tonight, my friends. We've got Marybeth Hicks with us today, and I'm telling you, she brings a lot with her, and she brings a voice with her, too, that needs to be heard. We're hearing a lot about this kind of stuff, the direction our culture is going, the work that we need to do. What are we responsible for? What do we need to take seriously? What do we need to do right now? And for that reason, Marybeth Hicks has written a book, Don't Let the Kids Drink the Kool-Aid, Confronting the Left's Assault on Our Families, Faith, and Freedom. Ms. Hicks, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Now, I want to start out right with the introduction here because you say something which kind of throws you for a loop. You say, in 2007, while still a member of the United States Senate, Barack Obama said, quote, I am absolutely convinced that culture wars are just so 90s. Their days are growing dark. Obama was right. The culture wars are over. We lost. Ms. Hicks, If we lost the war, what are we fighting for?
Well, you have to forgive me for a little hyperbole, but I have to say that if you look around pretty carefully, you realize that it's hard to argue that we haven't lost. I mean, so if you look at our children's generation, my children's generation, my kids are 14 to 22. I have 4 children in that age range. And, their peers are pretty much raised on media. They're raised within the public school system where leftism is really the sort of the standard, and their pop culture really supports a lot of the leftist worldview, and so it's hard to argue with the numbers, because what I did is I just took all of that and I researched and thought, who are these young people? What do they believe? What is their worldview? And they are really becoming molded. They are molded by the left and to become the first generation of American socialists. And I think we're seeing it with this Occupy Wall Street movement all over the country. So unfortunately, it's really true, but there's much we can do. So like the book has a happy ending, but the reality is that we need to be paying attention.
Ms. Hicks, this is Frank here on behalf of Political Vindication. I want to welcome you on today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Frank.
Let me just say what a wonderful book and very refreshing in so many ways. You make points in this book that I think even many conservative bloggers don't like to make, especially your arguments against the homosexual lifestyle, which we'll get into in a minute. Mm-hmm. But I think you make a lot of cultural arguments that many conservatives, especially our libertarian wing of the right is very afraid to talk about, and that is sort of the cultural issues. But I want to get right into the book. Chapter 1, you talk about the leftist indoctrination of our children in our educational system. Let me ask you, who are the primary culprits here that are indoctrinating our children? Is it the teachers? Is it the administrators? Is it the unions? Or is it a little bit of all the above?
Yeah, a little bit of all the above. Well, let me just, I'm going to elevate your discussion a little bit for you, just so that our listeners will understand. The book is actually divided in 3 parts. The first part is how the left is basically undoing our American character. And how I think of it is that if you imagine America sits on this 3-legged stool of family, faith, and freedom, the left is really kind of cutting the legs out of those 3 things when it concerns our children, so that they're teaching our kids that freedom isn't what we think it means. Freedom isn't about freedom to pursue our own American dreams and freedom to have opportunity. Freedom should be about freedom from want, freedom from college debt, freedom from worry about health care, all these things that the left sort of has now defined as a new set of freedoms, which is really a new set of rights which the government would provide. And so the left is sort of through the curriculum in our schools really undone what we teach our kids about our government, our civics, our political systems, our economy. They really don't teach anything about capitalism. Our children don't even know, 30% of American children, more than 30%, don't know where the government gets its money. This is a survey of teenagers that I cite, which comes from the National Center of Education Statistics. So it's not like I'm looking to some big right-wing, authority to get my stats. I got it all from the government. So, we have to understand that that's a big part of it. And so the first 3 chapters of the book really explain how the left is cutting out those 3 legs under the stool. And then in the second part of the book, I talk about what they're doing to replace those values with other things, with the leftist belief system. And then in that third section of the book, I talk about what we can do to fight back. So I want listeners to understand that there's, it's not just this education system. The book does deal a lot with our schools and our public school system, but it's quite a bit bigger than that. Having said that, I will say this: the curriculum is so hijacked by the left to just instill in our children's generation beliefs about the world and America's place in the world that it's pretty hard to fight back. You have to be paying close attention at your kitchen table with your kids to know what you're up against.
It's interesting. Let's stick with family for a moment here. Right on the front of Yahoo News right now, you've got a highlighted article about, in San Diego, critics of lesbian homecoming couples are bullies, official says. San Diego school superintendent Monday branded as adult bullies who preach hate and intolerance the people who have made phone calls and sent emails criticizing the student selection of a lesbian couple as the homecoming king and queen at Patrick Henry High School. Sexuality, environmentalism, you go through your book as you talk about it. Queer is the new normal, read Right and Revolution, Pledge Allegiance to the Earth. You go through these things, Ms. Hicks, and you talk about that, but it is not hate and intolerance to debate, especially sexuality. I heard Rush Limbaugh talking today about 5th graders. I think it was Rush Limbaugh talking about 5th graders learning how to pull a condom over the bed. We've been dealing with this debate for a long time, Ms. Hicks.
Well, yeah, and what's fascinating to me is how the left has really used the issue of bullying as a way to politicize the whole issue of sexuality and sexual identity and teaching children about sexuality. First of all, we know that the big movement in the left is to teach our children something they call comprehensive sexuality education, not sex ed, but sexuality ed. So the difference is they don't want to just teach our kids about the biology associated with reproduction or even the mechanics of how to avoid STDs and all this kind of stuff. They actually really want to teach children about sexual preference, sexual identity, gender confusion. And they want to normalize all these things so that our children's generation believes that this is, gender confusion, for example, would just be a normal part of growing up. You might wonder if you're really male or female, and in fact, the proponents of this are quick to tell you, oh, hey, your anatomy is sort of just an inconvenience. It doesn't really need to mean anything about you. And so, it's really some pretty dangerous messages that are unhealthy and unsafe for our children. But it's that story, I hadn't heard this one, but it's a perfect example of how this is working. So you can't object to the homosexual lifestyle anymore without being a bully. And which is, of course, absurd. I mean, I'm a practicing Catholic, and you've mentioned that that's something that's important to you as well. So we know that we teach our children that the Lord God makes us all in His image and likeness, and some people actually do struggle with same-sex attraction. But the fact is, sex in all ways outside of the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman is sinful. That's what God. That's the law of the land. That's the rule of the jungle, right? That's what we know. But the problem is that if you even utter anything along those lines, that's hate speech. Well, I actually love gay people. I have gay people in my life who I love. It's the sodomy I hate. It's it's like I'm not up for the sin part, but the people are great. And what's weird is that people in this culture are unable to be that sophisticated in their thinking. They want to simplify it to such a level that if you disagree with behavior, you automatically hate the people. Well, even, people whose kids are criminals, their moms love them, okay? Like, people who are really bad, evil people who do bad stuff, Bernie Goetz's mom still loved him, right? So we know that we can separate the sin from the sinner, but apparently in this culture, people think that when it comes to sexuality, you can't do that.
Yeah, but they're going to do it anyway. Okay, kids are going to do it, people are going to do it. So all we're trying to do is just teach them to be safe and to be open
exactly.
and
responsible.
Yes.
Yeah. And what's funny too is that the mixed messages for our children's generation are so profound. So on the one hand, it's all about not getting pregnant and not getting STDs, but on the other hand, it's so let's facilitate all the ways in which you can be sexually active at a very young age, even though, American Academy of Pediatrics will tell you that sexual activity for young people is personal, is harmful to their soul, it's harmful to their person, and that young people who have been sexually active will tell you they regret it. They wish they'd waited. They wish they had not, bought into this cultural message that it's just the thing to do. But, and of course the hilarious thing is when it comes to drugs and alcohol, the left thinks that we can just tell kids to just say no, But apparently when it comes to sex, they just are incapable of, controlling any of their urges. I guess, don't drink, but do have sex because you can't help yourself,
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Well, the non-traditional families in Hollywood, you spend a little bit of time in the book talking about the media. How has Hollywood affected the way not only just society in general looks at the family, but how teenagers especially look at the family and the role that media plays with it?
Yeah, it's a big role. First of all, just to get a little perspective, we have to appreciate that according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, not a right-wing organization, our children's generation, children right now, age 8 to 18, spend 7 hours and 38 minutes on average engaged with media every day. 7.5 hours a day, our children's generation is engaged with media. But that doesn't count media multitasking, which is like when you are surfing the net and watching TV at the same time. If you count in multitasking, you can actually ramp that number up to about 10 hours and 45 minutes. But that still doesn't count text messaging. So I don't actually know what these kids are doing other than sitting around in front of media all day, but apparently it's possible to add all those numbers up. And of course, we know that they're using personal data devices on the school bus on the way to school. We know that some kids climb in the car after school and mom, brings down the little video monitor and they watch a movie as mom is going to, driving to the grocery store or the soccer field. So it's all the time. There's kids engaged with media all the time. So the issue isn't whether they're with media. We know they are. So that then the question becomes, well, what's going on in that media? And what we know is that leftists are completely dominating media content. And they're proud of this fact. I mean, the propaganda that comes out of Hollywood is actually quite well known and quite accepted, and they don't really even think it's an issue. They think it's just appropriate that they promote their values through their media content. And so you have things like Modern Family and Glee and these shows that kids watch and think are great, and they're funny and they're very, they're very pithy, very witty, but they really are glorifying and glamorizing the lifestyle of alternative families. And so our children's generation actually statistically believes that a family is any group of people that loves each other and cares about each other. Yep. Families can form and reform, and that marriage is actually inconsequential to the issue of whether you're a family.
Oh, absolutely. And dogs are part of your family, too, as well.
Sure.
Their children, a lot of people describe them as their children, too, as well. Modern Family, my wife loves that show. It's hilarious. It's very funny. It's well done.
I have 2 college daughters who keep telling me I should start watching it because I love it. I don't actually watch much of anything that isn't news or the Food Channel. So, I have to do research when I have to write about these things because I don't actually watch enough of it to be able to just spout it off the top of my head. And so it's not like in my family, we're not living in a cave. We get it. We see it. And I think that's an important message, is that conservative parents and families need to know what's out there so that you can combat it with your commentary. It's not that our children will never see this stuff or that you'll ever really be able to shelter them entirely from what's out there. But you have to know enough about it so that you can provide balance in the way that our children are experiencing the world. And that's true whether it's media or their school things, the material that's coming home from school, the curriculum that they're getting. You have to be fully engaged, and that was really the purpose of this book, is to help parents to become more fully engaged and to be really knowledgeable about what their kids are learning.
You have Mark Stein talking about the descent of civilization. You have Patrick Buchanan out with a book right now that people are talking about, and it's that conversation, Ms. Hicks, about us losing ourselves, losing America, losing what it means to be American, what it is that makes us unique here too as well. And I think that one of the things you're talking about in your book, which is interesting, is that the media means to be entertaining, and it is entertaining, and it's funny. It feels good to watch it, but the messages that come through our media, wherever it's at, whether it's our music, our movies, our cable, our shows, it is good. It's top quality entertainment. I mean, Glee isn't. I can't stand that, and I don't know many people that do. But the message is getting through, and they mean for it to get through. Because they package it in a wonderful packaging, and they make it tasty and sweet here, it's still bad. It's still poison, and it's working its way through the system. We are seeing, we'll get to it in a moment, and your latest column talks about how we're seeing the culmination of all this work that the left's been doing right in our protests that we're seeing on the news every day. But I want to get to God real quick, and I want to talk. I want to read this part here on page 42, and you talk about heaven forbid the left's campaign against God. Rather than espouse traditional Christianity, America's youth essentially have grown into a generation of unchurched universalists. In soul-searching the religious and spiritual lives of American teenagers, Professors Christian Smith and Melinda Denton analyzed the National Study on Youth and Religion to identify the predominant belief system of American teens as, quote, moralistic therapeutic deism. Its 5 basic tenets are that, quote, number 1, God is distant. Number 2, God wants people to be nice to each other. Number 3, God wants us to be happy above all else. Number 4, God helps us when we have problems. And number 5, being a good person is a measure of one's life. So God is essentially a butler. Number 6.
Well, I'll tell you what, not a belief system that is particularly useful in a world of sin and where you need salvation. So, it's not really going to help you out in the big picture of things. But that's the thing. And the other thing is, it's really a crucial part of that is that teens also don't discern any differences between the faiths. They actually think all faiths are about the same. And so they don't really get there's much difference between Christianity and Islam and Judaism and Hindu. They just think it's like all about, it's Kabbalah. It's like all about the red string and the big God. It's almost like horoscopes. So it's really not, they've lost a great deal of concrete understanding about what faith can mean in their lives. And really, shame on parents, shame on us, really, if our children don't have a sense of what our faith is. Teens and children tend to identify with the denomination claimed by their parents, but they can't explain it to you really at all. They can't really tell you the difference. And so, but one of the things I think happens is, you go, how on earth did kids get to this? And then there's another study I talk about in the book from the Barna Group, which is a Christian research firm, that talks about what Christian kids believe about Christianity. And that Christianity is judgmental and cruel and harsh and all these kinds of things. So how do kids get to this? Well, here's what I look at. I go, okay, well, on the one hand, in the media, you have things like Glee, where the Christian character on Glee, she's the judgmental one, and her parents are the big Christians, but they're judgmental. In the first season, she gets pregnant, even though she's head of the Christian club at school. She gets pregnant, not with her boyfriend, but with her boyfriend's best friend. And then her parents throw her out of the house, because, of course, that's what all Christian parents would do. They would throw their pregnant daughter out of the house, right? So there's that. And then you watch, like, Family Guy. Okay, Family Guy, wildly popular show. Millions of kids watch Family Guy. Seth MacFarlane, creator of Family Guy, is an ardent anti-theist. I don't even think he's an atheist. Atheist is just somebody who doesn't believe in God. I think this guy does believe in God, and he hates him. Just my opinion. So he's an anti-theist, and so God and Jesus are recurring characters on his show, and he puts them in blasphemous, humorous situations. He puts God in sexual situations all the time. He thinks that's hilarious. And he's very clever, very funny. Isn't he hilarious? Except for here's the problem. So that's what kids get through the media. God is a joke. Christians are judgmental. Those are sort of underlying themes. But then you go to a public school, and you can't make a locker sign for a friend with a Bible verse on it, because that would be promoting your religion inappropriately in the public school. Or you can't make a poster with a Bible verse on it that the football team can run through, as they wanted to do in a North Georgia high school, and they were told they couldn't do it anymore because it was deemed, a violation of the separation of church and state. So instead they said, if you want to make your posters, you can put them over here on the school property in something they called, wait for it, a free speech zone. Not kidding. This is what our children's generation is learning about God. God is a joke. Christians are judgmental. And God is not allowed in the public square.
And it used to be
so what else could they conclude but that it's not appropriate?
Sure.
Right. Well, are we becoming more European, Ms. Hicks? I mean, it seems like this is a path we're going down. We know we've seen the most recent popes begging the Europeans go back to church, but the Europeans have not only taken a socialist approach to their economy, but also a more relativist, liberal, I guess you want to call it, sort of path to their morality. That's what I see happening here. Is there similarities?
So you kind of almost have to ask yourself which comes first, the chicken or the egg, though. Do you betray God and then become socialist, or you become socialist and then betray God? And in some sense, it doesn't really matter, because the fact is the outcome is the same. You'll have a soulless, heartless people who are downtrodden and oppressed. Either way, you get what you get. And I was in Europe it was at France and Italy a year ago, April, and we went to Mass. We went to Mass in Dijon in France with our daughter, who was studying abroad, and so she was 20. She wasn't quite 21. So here we were in 49, 50 years old with our 20-year-old daughter, and we were the youngest people in this church by a long shot, by 30, 40 years. I mean, it was amazing.
Well, let me ask you though: is it the children that are and the parents failing religion, or is it maybe the religious leadership that is failing our population in general?
Yes, the answer is yes. All around. So our religious leaders need to get more in the game. And one of the reasons I wrote this book is because it's not just parents and grandparents and coaches and teachers and pastors and youth ministers. People need to recognize that we are losing a generation. But when we lose this generation, we lose the whole game. Because you cannot have the America that our founders created for us without some of the same kinds of people that they were. And they were virtuous. Say what you will about Ben Franklin. Okay, he might have been a cad in some ways. But honestly, he's the guy who told us This nation was only built for a virtuous people and no other. And we are completely betraying our American character and our American ethos in this next generation. And so what you get is, you alluded to it a minute ago, is the Wall Street occupiers. It's astonishing to me that this is what it looks like. This is what America's next generation could look like if we don't all step up and realize how far down the road we already are. I don't know if we can turn it around, but I know that we, if we just stand there and shake our heads and go, well, that's bad, that's not going to be enough.
Well, if that is the future, then we better hope government's there to take care of us, because our kids won't.
Well, yeah, and honestly, they won't even know how to take care of themselves.
No,
so, the government will definitely take care of them.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
I'd like to think that there's still time. And so, that third section of the book where I talk about how to save America and the next generation is really the key. I mean, I kind of set you up for the fall, and that is I had one of my favorite book review that's been written about Don't Let the Kids Drink the Kool-Aid is one in which a reviewer considered both my book and Mark Stein's book in the same review. So of course I was completely flattered, because I think he's the new Bill Buckley. But also, the fact is, it really is two takes on the same subject, and that is he looks at the whole economic picture and America as a nation state. I'm looking at just that next generation and saying, what about that? Where are we there? And I'm seeing that if we don't do something quick to instill virtue in our children's generation, the technical term is we're screwed. So, we really have to step up and be very, very intentional about how we raise our children.
I think the war on children has been going on a long time. I think we've only been engaged in it, the conservatives, only recently. I think since the 80s.
I think it's interesting. I think what we've done is that I agree and disagree. I think families like mine, okay, like I said, my kids are 14 to 22, so, I've been in the hunt for a while. I think a lot of us have sort of hunkered down at home and said, okay, this is a crazy world we're living in. I'm just going to focus on the children God gave me. And, so my husband and I, we're raising taxpayers at our house. We're teaching our children what it means to be an American citizen. We're teaching them, what it means to take care of themselves. When they take a student loan, they understand the gravity of that decision, and they appreciate that they're going to have to pay it back. So those are, novel idea. But so on the one hand, I think a lot of conservatives are doing what we're doing, which is becoming a little bit insular. We're building this hedge of protection around our own children so that we can at least do what we can do in our own sphere of influence. The problem is this. When you hunker down that much, you have to hope that the culture doesn't follow you home. And I think for too many families, it has. So it's not enough to say, well, we reject you, culture, except for you flip on your TV and there it is, or your kids are sitting on the internet, or they're following links through Facebook, or they're out there on Twitter, they're doing whatever it is you're allowing because you didn't even realize how dangerous it is. And next thing you know, your children have just let you know that they're, can't talk now. I'm on my way to an occupied Tuscaloosa event, so you have to really be aware that the culture is invading our homes pretty significantly, thanks to all the technology we let in.
So those that have withdrawn from the public education system, that are homeschooling their children, have they given up?
No. I don't think they've given up. No, I don't think they've given up. But you can't run the risk of becoming so insular that you don't even know what's out there, or you don't appreciate that we need to be training up our children to be leaders in the world when their time comes. And so, when we're ready to send them back out, it needs to be armed for the battle. And so, I'm proud to say my oldest daughter, she went to a snooty Eastern school, but she won the Defender of Freedom Award, from the Center for Western Civilization at her college. So she went out there and she was unafraid to speak out her conservative principles in her college newspaper.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding, because I really think that's what we really need. It's one thing to raise our children to be good people, to be good Americans, to know our history, to appreciate our history. And often I think some of us kind of rely on God's hand on America. I believe that. I believe God has his hand on America, and that something will come along that is going to bring reality back to America. When I see the Obamavilles sprouting up all over the country here, and the answers that some of those protesters give, Ms. Hicks, to the questions that we give them, which I don't think are very difficult questions, but they don't have answers, and they're saying, well, the answers will come here. And I say, but see, that's part of the problem, is that there is something worth defending here in America. Mm-hmm. We've got something special here. It shouldn't be so difficult to come up with it. Having Michael Moore as your spokesperson out there, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Shame on you if that's the best that you can come up with here. There's a reason why you're able to leave whatever life you have and spend 6, 8, 10 weeks living in a park in New York.
Who can do that? Oh, my God, my life would be off. I can't even get that. Yeah, go crazy. I don't know how they can be on their... Well, and here's the funny question. How is it they can be on their cell phones and their iPads and whatnot with their wireless service?
Who's paying the bill?
Somebody's footing the bill for all this. You got to ask yourself. Yeah. Mommy, I need my cell phone bill paid. Yeah, well, here's the thing. So there's some, I've long decried, to be honest with you, a lack of skill in parenting in our nation. I wrote a parenting book prior to this one called Bringing Up Geeks, which is an acronym for Genuine, Enthusiastic, Empowered Kids. And the subtitle of that is How to Protect Your Child's Innocence in a Grow-Up-Too-Fast World. And so, this has kind of been my crusade for a while. But I went from that book, which was sort of a study of the microcosm of how to get it right in your own family, to this book, which Don't Let the Kids Drink the Kool-Aid, which is looking at our children's generation and realizing, oh, holy cow, this is really looking like a trend that might be really a current that we can't swim against. So I think we have to become really quickly up to speed on where we are and recognize that really the future of our nation depends on whether our children are prepared and raised to carry the mantle of American exceptionalism. Well, how can they carry that mantle if their president is telling them right now, hey, yeah, we think it's exceptional to be American, but the Greeks think it's exceptional to be Greek, and the British think it's exceptional to be British. Okay, not the right message. When we're talking American exceptionalism, we need to help our children understand that they are blessed beyond measure to have been born in this nation at this time, and that they have an opportunity to be leaders in their nation and in the world for freedom, for peace, for prosperity. And yet, this president is robbing our kids of the optimism and spirit that really carries us from generation to generation. So we parents have to step up and say, okay, wait just a darn minute here. There is more to this American experiment that can be lost if we aren't really focusing on how to communicate our history to our children.
Yeah.
So lots and lots of work to do.
Well, Miss Hicks, let me just say, one of the things you brought up in your book that I wish more conservatives will kind of bring this point up, and one of the problems we have on our side of the aisle is that you mentioned the point that the break up the family essentially always is going to lead to bigger government, because when families break up, people run to the government. Mm-hmm. And that's an argument that we've made here on Political Vindication Radio for years, but we have a little bit of trouble communicating this message to our friends on the libertarian right, who say, you know what, social issues, let's back off. Those are just losing issues. We don't belong in other people's bedrooms anyways. All we need to do is focus on the financial issues, especially when it comes to the elections of our politicians here. Ms. Hicks, social issues, economic issues, can they really be separated?
Well, the problem is that, I love me some libertarians too, but, the fact is that morality is morality. And it's really convenient to claim libertarianism and then join in the chorus of moral relativism. But there are some things that are right and some things that are wrong, and they're always right and they're always wrong. And so, for example, abortion is always wrong. So you can't do I can't get my nose in somebody's bedroom argument or in somebody's doctor's office between a woman and her physician, because that's intruding. when you're going to kill a baby in the process, because that's a human life. If you let it go and do nothing to impede its development, it will birth itself and it will be a person. And so, you know, it's not going to be a puppy or a dog or a dream or a prayer. It's just going to be a human being. And so, you know, it's just like not okay. It's just disingenuous on the one hand. Libertarianism is great to a point, because I get that people are just so fed up with government intervention, they just want to go live on their Iowa, you know, farm and be left alone. Great, except for people are killing babies all over the nation, and, you know, we can't just stand back and go, wow, we should just, like, wish they wouldn't do that, or whatever it is they think. So, I mean, I just think that you can't claim libertarianism as an excuse for amoralism, if you will. Morality is still the thing that drives a great nation. And when you claim morality, there are some things that are right and wrong, and by virtue of claiming right and wrong, you have to impose some restrictions on people's behavior. And so there's no such thing as libertarianism that isn't completely amoral, because otherwise you would just let everybody do what they always want to do, and nobody would be bothered by the government. And that's just disingenuous. It's not cool. I don't know how to put it another way. It's just not cool.
It's just not cool, and we need to make religion cool again.
Yeah, Jesus never has gone out of style in my book, but, you know, or God generally, and, you know, I think that people are really getting that we need to step up to walk the walk. I mean, you know, it's great to be a believer in your own home and pray for the country, but at some point we have to really get in the game and speak out. I'm speaking out more and more, and the more defiant I am, the more email I get, for one thing. But the more I feel like I'm really doing what God is calling me to do. I feel like, you know, it's not enough to just sort of be lukewarm and say things that I hope won't offend people. I'm just saying what I think is what God is asking me to say in my life and my writing, and hoping that, you know, the right people are hearing it. It's not easy though.
So my final question to you, and we are talking with Marybeth Hicks. You've seen her links in the chat room. You'll continue to see them all night long. You need to read the book. You need to join this battle. Marybeth, are you optimistic for America?
Oh, totally. I'm an eternal optimist. Absolutely, absolutely. We're still the greatest nation on earth, the greatest nation in human history, because we are founded on, you know, God's providence for us. And so we need to revisit that. We need to have a revival, if you will, of our American heritage. And when we do that, it will be a revival for God as well, because it was one and the same. So I'm very optimistic. The Lord will not leave us high and dry. I don't know what the future is going to look like. I have to say, you know, some days we, you know, my husband and I kind of look at each other and go, we are living in weird times. And I do not know what to make of it, you know?
I guess. Yeah, weird. Yeah.
Don't you feel that way? It's like, wow, this is so weird. I can't even imagine. But on the other hand,
I'm in California, Marybeth.
Yeah, and I'm in Michigan, so it must be weird where you are, you know. But you know, it's weird here too. It's weird everywhere. It's just a strange time. It's things are happening. It feels like you know, there's no such thing as a trillion. I can't even wrap my arms around that. It feels like we should all just like gather up the Monopoly money from our game boards and ship it off to Washington and see what they can do with that. You know, go figure. But I don't know. I think God is still loves the religious freedom that we have pursued here, and you know, we who believe need to just keep praying about it and keep doing our best. But we need to make courageous decisions, and that is what is in the third chapter, or the third part of my book. We need to fight for parental rights and not succumb to the pressure to let the state raise our children. We need to shelter our children from media that corrupts their innocence and their wholesomeness, and we need to instill virtue in our children, because that is the only saving grace for this nation. So a lot of work to do, and we can do it.
Well, and you're a part of that. You are a jewel. Thank you so much for your passion, your spirit to get involved in that. It means a lot to us, and thank you for spending our time. Marybeth Hicks, author of Don't Let the Kids Drink the Kool-Aid, Confronting the Left's Assault on Our Families, Faith, and Freedom. I'm so glad we have you, Marybeth. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My friends, as we do on this show, all of you know here, us conservatives that gather every Tuesday night on Blog Talk Radio, listen to this. This is the continuing battle. If you think you're alone, you're not alone. You were never alone here. Sometimes things look terrible, look weird, as Marybeth says here. But I think that God's got his hand on America. I truly believe that here. Some of the kooky things that we see, they shouldn't dispirit you. They should let you know that there's ebb and flow, there's valleys, there's mountaintops here, and you got to stick with it. It's a test for us. It's a test for them. I think everybody here understands that you let go here, we lose it all. Don't let go. Be a part of the movement that saves America. We're here for a purpose, and I don't even know if our purpose has been revealed yet here. Just because we've got a great beginning and we've made such a big difference in the world right now, that doesn't mean it was it. 200 years of America. Who knows, man? Who knows what America can be? We know what we are. We know the glory that is. But what does the future hold for America here? Don't go anywhere. Political Vindication Radio. We'll come back. We got a caller on the line, Miss Linda. We're going to get to you, Miss Linda, talk to you. We got a lot going on here. We'd love to hear from you, too, as well. This is Political Vindication Radio. It's Tuesday, November 1st, just about a year out from the election. Don't go anywhere. Political Vindication. To vindicate the convictions that ensure liberty, respect life, and honor tradition. But not all convictions are equal. We've seen a nation that revolted for its freedom forget that we are born free and choose to abandon that dignity. We've learned that progressivism isn't progress, and liberalism has nothing to do with liberty. So we must fight to regain what we've lost, to live by the convictions that reject paternalism, embrace capitalism, and define man as more than a Pavlovian beast. Political Vindication Radio, every Tuesday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, where conservatives Frank and Shane talk politics and interview best-selling authors and activists. It's 2 hours of some of today's brightest minds discussing culture, history, and politics. This nation cannot remain great if its people aren't. That's why we're here every Tuesday. We've got to bring more than hope and regret into the future. Political Vindication Radio. It's where patriots meet.